All right, in adjusting your levels, because we shot on a white background, you should have probably, or you probably will have, a big hump on the light side because of all the lights in the exposure. But for the rest, you want to have a nice even mound, showing the strong value range. And you can optimize it, but of course you don't want to go too far in either direction. So I'm going to go right on the edges of my histogram there. You can see the difference that makes, bringing it out. And sometimes that can help your channel mixer as well. So now I'm going to go to adjustment layers. And I'll go to the channel mixer as an adjustment layer that will filter everything out below it. And I can go to the red layer and I can say, okay, definitely want to go a little bit away, a little bit down on the greens. I don't want to push a green, but I want to go from 0 a few percentages down. And then blue. So now that you have your histogram optimized, you're really looking for the right temperature white. Maybe a -2 there. Now I go to green. I leave the green where it is. Oh, I really don't want to push this either way. The red stays put. The blue, I don't think I really want to push that either way. Maybe +1. No, that's about right. All right, the blue. Ah, beautiful. If I just push the green up a little bit on the blue, it's like a breath of fresh air. So you'll find it once you hit it. It'll make all the difference. That just took away that kind of yellow pall and shows it to me clearly. And then a little bit on the reds. Ah, now that's looking mixed. Okay, so we did channel mixer twice. And what we're doing is we're adjusting the temperature around the lights. You want to leave the blue, the green on their respective channels, and the red at 100%. But you can take them down or push them up around them to help adjust the temperature. The reason you want to leave the 100% is I don't want this wood to start looking like a different color than it really is. And when you light it in a different way, like remember when I used the flash, that just colored it with a different temperature. So that's not its real color either. And if I had to use channel mixer there, I'd have to bring the warms back into it to get to a neutral white. Okay, so now I got to do all that to my other exposure, but here's the beauty of it. Because I did it as an adjustment layer, I could try just moving it over now. So how do I do that? I float this as its own layer. I take this adjustment channel and I drop it on top of here. And it does a little bit to fix it. But first, I have the duplicate. So what do I do first? I go to do a direct adjustment of the channel mixer, and I roughly take some out each channel. The one that's going to take out the yellow the most is the blue channel. Just like that. Then I make a duplicate of that, and I go to my levels adjustments, and I optimize the histogram just enough. You're safe shifting the midtones a little bit to either side. Go a little bit darker with them. And now I brought over that adjustment layer. And I'm seeing the two with a pretty neutral white as a background. Might be a little bit more warmth than this, so let me play with it. Oops, wrong one. Channel mixer is an incredibly powerful tool. So Be respectful of it. Takes very small adjustments to make a big difference. There we go. That's looking better. All right. So, are they done? Are they as effective as they can be? Well, if I zoom in, I can see I have varied focus, right? Intentional focus. And I have to choose between them now. And I see that this one's focus is sharper, just holding a little bit steadier for the shutter speed. This one also has a little bit more visual interest with the shadow, instead of just letting the shadow blast out. So as much as I like that it's kind of floating in space like a scientific specimen, I think this one has more of the eye movement. If I were to trace the eye movement, this is kind of how I see it. You start in the middle, right? So dead center right there. But there's not much there, so your eye gets caught up and it starts going around this edge. It swirls into here, gets into these holes. I like how this angle cuts across and doesn't let you exit, right? So you get to all of that, and then maybe you get led down through this linear momentum into the shadow a little bit before you leave. Now, is that great eye movement? That's pretty engaged. And to meet the requirements of not cropping anything, keeping everything within the format, that might even be a little bit stronger than this one where you start in the middle and then your eye kind of swirls around this edge and then ultimately dumps out, right? So just looking at eye movement alone, this one's more engaging. The focus is a little bit stronger. It looks a little dangerous, kind of tilting towards you. So I'm going to go with this one. Huh, why is that not showing up? So I'll save this one. There we go. As an alternate. So assignment 4, alternate, Carl. There's still something I like about it, but that's all right. So now I'm committed to this one. So now I want to look at how can I make it more engaging? How can I use the other formal elements? I've used lighting, I've used composition, I've used edge control in terms of my exposure. So shooting to have a soft edge at the back and slightly soft edge in the front and the sharpest focus, so you're looking past this knob here into the grain of the wood at the middle and those holes. I have the soft edge shadow from my diffuse lighting. But let's see if there's anything that's in focus I don't want, like these smudges here. So now I'm going to flatten everything onto its own layer so I can start making retouches. So let me delete this eye movement layer. To flatten everything, merge it all together, but still keep all these adjustment layers, I go to Layer, I hold down Option, and I click on Merge Visible. And that gives me a 100% layer that merges all of those effects. Right? I can see if my channel mixer helps it at all. No, it pushes it a little bit too green and blue. So I'm at the right place. Okay, now on this layer, I can start retouching using some of the things we looked at before. So I might use the patch tool. I might say, oh, just this little thing here. I just need to map that with this texture so that that disappears. These little spots, let me just get rid of those. This little line that was from dragging the wood, let me match that. The reason the patch is a good tool for this is because I'm using something as close to the lighting and the texture of that area as possible. So what does it look like without? Looks distracting to have those little marks there. Now, do I need to clean up every little imperfection? No. I'm not airbrushing a supermodel. I'm trying to make an object look interesting. But you do want to change anything that's distracting, that's taking your eye away, that's impeding the composition that you intended. Now I'm also using the patch tool because it blends with what's already around. I'm not using the 100% clone stamp tool or anything. Especially because my canvas background has a slight texture to it, these angles, and I don't want to lose that entirely. So I don't want to just replace that all with blank white. I could also do this with the spot removal tool, which is like a one-step patch tool. To show you how that works again, spot healing brush. I simply paint over the area and it will match it with what's around. It's just so easy to use. You tend to overuse it. It gets a little dangerous. And at this point, I always confuse the dust on my screen for things in my exposure. So that's why I'll keep moving it around, just using spacebar. And think of the dirty background that you are painting on as just practice with your retouching tools. All right, and I like to be able to compare it. Did that make a sizable difference? Made a subtle difference, but it's a difference. Okay, now what else can I do? Well, maybe it's a little too bright at the edges. So this is a technique called vignetting. So I'm going to label a blank layer on top as a vignette, and I'm going to show you what we can do. I'm actually going to turn this into a burning layer, right? You can also dodge a vignette if you have a dark background. Vignette is a framing device. So I'm going to fill that new blank layer with middle gray. I'm going to set it to overlay mode, and I'm going to use the burn tool. Midtones, low exposure, really large, really soft. Then I'm going to start painting around the edges. It's very subtle, and I'm just hitting the midtones right now. That's darkening some of the shadows. It's on its own layer called vignette. Then I'm going to switch to highlights. Burning highlights. Bringing out what's in the exposure already. Just deepening it a little bit. These highlights really don't want to burn. All right, now let's see. Did it make a difference? It's subtle, but it certainly did. Now the problem with burning is it adds color.